Hello and welcome back to the channel and welcome to Blue Moon. To be honest, at this point I'm quite surprised we've not covered this beer on the channel already, but it's probably for good reason. I've got a bit of a sketchy history with this beer. I didn't discover it until quite late on, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know how, it just kind of passed me by. And the first pint I ever had of it was incredible. Now, it was in a German-themed sports bar. Now, don't get me wrong, Belgium and Germany are not the same place, but they are neighbours and they are both very, very capable at serving and producing beer. So maybe there was something in that, maybe they just knew what they were doing. That said, it was a German-inspired sports bar and not the real deal, so I'm still a bit hesitant. But anyway, as I say, it was very nice. After that, I probably had 2 more pints of it that were awful, and I tried it in bottles, which was also pretty damn awful. So I ignored it from then, and, well, that leads us to today, or should I say, leads us to a week ago, when a friend of mine came round for just an evening of chat and a few beers, and he brought with him a 4-pack of Blue Moon Belgian White, and I was a bit, I'd had good ones and I'd had bad ones. I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. I'd never had it in a can before though, and I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. Now, full admittance, I'd had a few beers and a whiskey by the time that I tried one, but I thought it was alright. So let's find out for real now. Blue Moon Belgian White in a can, is it any good? Before we break into it, here is a quick look at the can. It's a stubby 330ml can. Belgian-style wheat ale. I say Belgian-style because I believe this is produced in America, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll get into that a bit later. Same thing on the other side of the can. Shed load of info, as you'd expect for such a big beer brand. But yeah, let's get into it. Should say this is a 5.4% beer, and I will not be serving it with the traditional orange wedge because I want to know, is the beer itself any good? In the glass then, I mean, it looks like a wheat beer, Weiss beer. They're all along the same lines. And it's got that typical hazy, kind of orangey lemon looking body with a nice plump foamy white head on it. By all accounts, it hits the marks. There is something about it though that comes across as synthetic is the word I wanted to use, but I'm probably wrong. It feels maybe just a bit flat and a bit uninteresting. Normally, Weiss beers, wheat beers, whatever you want to call them, are quite, I don't know, they're often quite a bit sparky. The heads go a bit crazy. It's all a bit tame, just a little tame. But hey, it looks good. I can't complain. So, aromas. Now, wheat beer generally has quite a punchy, aromatic, lemon, orange, coriander seed, sometimes even a bit of pepperiness to it. But this, again, it's very tame. It's sweet, and there's some very, very subtle reminiscence of like a lemon bonbon or that kind of thing, but it doesn't smell of a lot, if I'm honest. Yeah, I think the reason that you whack a bit of citrus on top of it, is to make it smell of something, because it doesn't really. Anyway, let's get into it. Cheers. Okay. Interestingly enough, in a can, I have to say, it's not terrible. I've not decided if it's good yet, but I'm not repulsed by this. It's not got any negatives about it. But what I do now need to do is work out if there are any positives, or is this the beer equivalent of drinking a glass of tap water because it's just neutral. Now, the mouthfeel is very good, actually. It does have some proper body and viscosity to it. But that might be where it ends. I think I'm going to struggle doing a top to bottom taste test with this beer because, well, there's not a huge amount of taste. Again, there is kind of a pithy, orange, lemony, very subtle, very sweet citrus fruit note throughout. And a long-term aftertaste, actually. There is a little bit of kind of a wheated biscuit, digestive biscuit aftertaste from the malt. But it's very subtle and takes a very long time to come through. But you know what? We're going to have to give it a go. Top to bottom taste test to see if this might be the most boring beer so far. So initially, hey, sorry to interrupt, but this is kind of important. Currently, only 29% of people who watch my videos regularly are actually subscribed to this channel, and in order to be able to bring you bigger and better content, that figure needs to get closer to 50%. So please, if you wouldn't mind, just click that subscribe button below the video. It doesn't cost you anything and it would help me a whole bunch. So thank you, and now back to the video. Quite surprisingly, the front of the tongue is actually quite busy. There's a decent amount of carbonation spiking around there, and also some kind of sweeter citrus notes. It's definitely in kind of the kind of mid-tone orange palette, but there's arguments for things like, you know, sour pineapple and that kind of thing. From that point, the carbonation continues, and that initial note just fizzles out across the whole tongue. Not even, you know, there's not really a lot to say. I reckon right at the back there, just before you swallow, you almost get like a tingling, almost a hint of bitterness. It's like it's almost opened the door to it and then slammed it shut at the last minute. It's not really there. This is bizarre. I mean, it's so easy to drink. I'll give them that. There's a bit of mild, sharp lemon and orange on the very, very first kind of bit of aftertaste as soon as you swallow it. And it dies out, and then it takes you an absolute age to get back to that slightly biscuity malt that I mentioned before. I'm struggling with this because none of the flavours are bad, but that might be because none of the flavours exist. It's interesting. You know what? If you've got a mate that will not put down a pint of Carling to try anything else, this is about as inoffensive as non-generic lagers get, really. And I have to say, as a kind of go-to when you're trying some interesting whiskey in between, not a bad shout because it's not really impacting your palate. If anything, it's just a mild palate cleanser. There's nothing wrong with this beer, but there's just absolutely nothing to get excited about either. And that is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already subscribed, if you will be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.